This is Abe from Movies with Abe, and I'm so thrilled to be here with Genevieve Adams talking about her new film, Simchas and Sorrows. How are you today, Genevieve?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me, Abe.
Of course. Can you tell me a bit about the inspiration behind the premise for this film?
Yes. So it may not come as a surprise that this film is based on experiences I had in my real life. When I decided to get married, my husband, now husband, and I got engaged, and suddenly his Jewishness became a topic of discussion, which it had previously not been. And it also led to a lot of comedy. We started taking this class at Central Synagogue. With an excellent Rabbi April Davis, who inspired the character of Rabbi Cohen. She was just this really smart, interesting woman who I felt, you wouldn't get a kind of religious leader like that in Christianity, for example, because women can't be priests, et cetera, et cetera. So I started to find a lot of inspiration in this class and just a lot of humor, and also some profound things came up. So I thought, there's a lot here. And the more I talked to friends and heard stories about other people, getting married to someone who maybe was from another faith or another culture. There were always these hilarious stories. And I thought this is something that a lot of people can relate to, this idea of joining another tribe, even if it's not a religious thing. When you get married, you're entering another family. And so there's a lot that comes with that. And it's just sort of ripe for comedy and a romantic comedy, I thought sort of made perfect sense.
Absolutely. And how much of it do you think is specific to converting to Judaism versus other religions?
Well, this film is definitely, that's the example we use to delve into the issue. But I think the issues of joining another tribe are, universal. Feeling like an outsider and, trying to assimilate into someone else's family is always a little intimidating and can be fraught with, tension. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. And I think this movie just on a larger scale deals with those, universal ideas of joining another group. But we use the specific lens of Agnes converting to Judaism to do so.
Do you think that people with positive connections to religion before watching this film will be put off potentially by some of that content?
It's possible, I think you have to walk a fine line when you're making art, which I do believe film is. And I tried to make something that was, beautiful and honest with this film. And that's always a little scary and you feel a little vulnerable. Hari Neff was really instrumental in convincing me to go there in the sermon and to bring up Israel and Palestine and to bring up politically charged issues, even though it does risk putting some people off. I think we didn't want to be polarizing. We just wanted to be, authentic, and we wanted to. It seemed like a missed opportunity, to not talk about these things when you're writing a film on this subject. It seemed like dishonest in a way to not talk about the real issues, and to not go there. So I definitely think, as an artist, you always want to say something. And I think we attempted to be bold, but also to be respectful of all the various different points of views. And I think Rabbi Cohen as a leader is someone who, she wouldn't want to alienate members of her congregation. So we were also very cognizant. We wanted to be true to the character and not just, it wasn't like me, the filmmaker, sitting like, here are my political points of view, and I'm going to insert those into the film. It was more like, we can't write a movie about modern Judaism without going there. So how are we going to go there in a way that's realistic and thought provoking? And so that's sort of how we approached it.
I know that when I look for, portraits of Judaism in film and television, I hope for something authentic, but I also know there's risk of what you make sort of stands for and represents everything. And Unorthodox is a great example of something that was an excellent series, but really does not portray, Hasidic Judaism in a very positive light at all. And while there are certainly people who have negative experiences with it, there are also those who really do connect to the faith. And so it is, as you say, it's a delicate line between capturing what it's really like, but also trying to say this is what it's like for everyone rather than it's a universal theme.
Exactly. I think every story has to be, I'm presenting Agnes's story and Rabbi Cohen's story and Levi's story. And that, has its roots in my Genevieve's story. But I think when you approach a film from that point of view, like this is the characters speaking, this is their journey, then you allow people to sort of connect with what they will. And then the rest is up for interpretation and, up for discussion.
Right. It's also interesting the way that conversion is approached, because I think for the perception a lot of people have is that it's a negative thing, that it's something people sort of are forced to do or encouraged or pressured to do. But I think there can also be something very nice in that. How did you sort of reckon with that and your own experiences?
Yeah, I definitely think of all, or I mean, I can't speak for every religion, but I definitely think from coming from a, Catholic background, I was expecting a lot more, like missionary style, like join us kind of thing. And that was nice that, in Judaism, there really isn't that. Although I will say there is a pressure from the family side of it. And as a woman, I felt a particular sense of, that it was that people were eyes were on me in a way. And I could have, there are different ways to approach it. Do you want to, you have to sort of wrestle with, how much do I sacrifice to please others and how much of my own belief system do I actually believe and what am I willing to give up? And that's why I thought this subject was a great one for a film, because there's a lot of internal wrestling and external, obstacles that kind of mirror each other and create a nice dramatic arc.
Have you heard from anybody who's either started or begun or been through the process of conversion about their reactions to this film?
I have, people are really excited about it. From both sides, because not that there's just two sides, but it seems to me the people I've, met, and friends that I've talked to who've been in similar situations, that people are just really happy to see an experience like this shown in film, because it's not really talked about that much. I think because it can be such a charged issue in religion, and especially, the troubling rise of anti-Semitism right now. And it's sort of a topic that people are wary of. It doesn't always people don't always think it lends itself to cinema, but it's a very common story. And, a lot of people can relate to it, as I mentioned before. So yeah, I've heard mixed, nothing negative. People are just excited to see a story like this. And I think there's not enough out there that, discusses this, because it's such a human thing.
Have any reactions to the film really surprised you?
That's a good question. I think, it's always funny we haven't had, we've had some live screenings, but in this virtual pandemic world we live in, it's, you're kind of isolated from people's reactions, which is a shame, because that can be really fun. But we have had a couple of screenings at Bentonville and at various film festivals where I've been really happy to hear people sort of like gasping in certain scenes, or like laughing where I didn't think it was that funny, or looking sort of emotional when I was sort of, it's really interesting to see what touches people, and their reactions are often very different than what you would anticipate. But I do think there's been a lot of different reactions and a lot of different thoughtful responses, most of them thoughtful, and that's always really rewarding to hear, just that it made people think and feel. And that sort of, to me, is like, okay, I've done what I set out to do.
I also think the title is interesting because it's very appropriate, but it's also very you have to know. I feel like Simcha is not a universal word that people don't know without some experience of Judaism.
Yeah, I always do this with titles. Like the first film that I wrote had a long title that everyone thought was a stalker film. And I feel like I've never, like I loved Simchas and Sorrows when I came up with it. I was like, that's perfect. It's alliterative. It sounds great. And then I was like, maybe it will, people won't know what it, but I was like, I don't care. I'm not making this, I'm making this movie so that people, Google, what is a Simcha? And, because it's a great word and it sounds great. And, I didn't know about it until I took this class. And so I thought, it says a lot. And, I think I was trying not to shy away from being specific and being, celebrating the Hebrew word. And I think it's nice.
Was the experience of making your first feature what you expected?
That's a good question too. I don't think you can ever prepare yourself for embarking on something like this. I did know quite a bit having worked on a film before that I wrote and produced and was in. That was also a very similar kind of shoestring budget situation, 21, days to shoot, a lot of scenes. So I've been an actor and other things. So I know how a set operates and I know how difficult it is. But yeah, nothing can ever really prepare you for running your own set, and being the director is it's quite a responsibility, and everyone's coming to you for answers and you often don't have the answers. So I just tried to surround myself with the best people. I had Daniel Contaldo, who's just a excellent cinematographer, and he taught me so much about being behind the camera and how to tell a story visually. And my assistant director Alex just kept things moving and kept everyone in line. And when you have a group of filmmakers that are passionate and hardworking, it is really amazing what you can do. Because I don't think anyone, at the beginning of this, we were like 21 days during a pandemic, like I forget how many locations and like tons of characters, and there was a lot. We had animals and children in the film. So it was a lot. It was a lot of moving parts, but everyone sort of tackled it with a great spirit, and that makes it doable.
What do you have coming up next?
It's a good question. I have a 5-month-old baby, so I've been busy with being a mom, and I'm writing. I have a new script that I'm hoping to get going. Remains to be seen exactly when that will happen, but I'm optimistic, and this one's going really well. So we're just thrilled to be working with Gravitas to get Simchas out to the wider world. It's available now on Vudu and Vimeo, iTunes, Amazon.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you plenty of luck with that and with this film. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you, Abe. Have a great one.
You too.